In section 7 of Counsels and Maxims, Schopenhauer writes, "Whether we are in a pleasant or painful state depends ultimately upon the kind of matter that pervades and engrosses our consciousness. In this respect, purely intellectual occupation, for the mind that is capable of it, will as a rule do much more in the way of happiness than any form of practical life. With its constant alternations of success and failure, and all the shocks and torments it produces." So I'll pause here in the middle of this short section to note that Schopenhauer is here discussing the contrast, we might say, between the contemplative and the active life. And he is saying that the contemplative life may be preferable, but not because it unites us to higher objects and gives us access to a sort of greater kind of intellectual pleasure. Rather, it's simply that it's less variable. Intellectual life is more steady. It doesn't have the shocks and the ups and downs, the successes and failures of practical life. And so it might be more comparable to having, say, a wage income that is steady month after month, week after week, rather than working on commission, where you have great months sometimes and terrible months other times, great highs and great lows, and a lot of anxiety about a long run of lows, for example. So perhaps Schopenhauer is suggesting that just as one might, the kind of person that might prefer a steady wage, a steady salary position, may also prefer the intellectual life because it's less varied and therefore less upsetting to the stability of the personality. Schopenhauer continues, "But it must be confessed that for such occupation a preeminent amount of intellectual capacity is necessary." Okay, you have to have certain intellectual gifts in order to pursue this kind of life. "And in this connection it may be noted that, just as a life devoted to outward activity will distract and divert a man from study, and also deprive him of that quiet concentration of mind which is necessary for such work, that is, intellectual work, so on the other hand, a long course of thought will make him more or less unfit for the noisy pursuits of real life. It is advisable, therefore, to suspend mental work for a while, if circumstances happen which demand any degree of energy in affairs of a practical nature." And that's the end of the section, with simply an observation that just as great devotion to the physical workings, the active life, may unfit a person for deep intellectual pursuits, excessive pursuit of the intellectual variety will deprive us of the kind of activity, energy, and skill that's needed for active life. And so we ought to govern ourselves accordingly if we know that our circumstances will be such in the future as to demand it. So that's the end of section 7 of Schopenhauer's Counsels and Maxims. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We'll take a look at section 8 in the next video. Take care. Bye.